Okay, in this video we're going to take a look at some menus, a horizontal drop down and a vertical pop out, so that you can see how you can use all the things that we've talked about so far with CSS and positioning with CSS, so that you can create some dynamic menus here. So in that zip file that you should have downloaded should be a folder that's complete, which has all the complete ones. There's actually 3 there: the vertical pop out, the horizontal drop down, and a horizontal that has a horizontal menu underneath of it. It's not one of my favorites, but the code is there for that. We're not going to do that in here. Also in there are 3 files for starter, and we're going to start with the horizontal drop down with this vertical. And first thing, there's just some styles here to do some basic things with the body and the wrapper being the element that we're controlling or placing all of these things in. So inside of here in the HTML, it's really pretty simple. We have an unordered list that has a group of list items. Those would be the horizontal menu, and then for each horizontal menu that has a submenu, we have a unordered list nested in that. The key here though is to make sure that your list item that contains this actually has it placed between the opening and closing tags of the LI. If you don't do that, what we're going to do to get this to work is not going to work. So it has to be nested inside of that LI. As you can see, they all are. So let's take a look at this before we even start anything to see what it looks like. And here's our menu now. Now item 1, second item, no sub item, and number 4 are all going to be horizontal. When you hover over them, then the submenus are going to drop down from them when we're done. So let's go back to the code now. And the first thing we want to do is style the overall UL. And that, as you see here, has an ID of navbar. So we're going to do pound navbar, and inside of this we're going to set the margin to 0 all the way around, and we're going to set the padding the same way, 0 all the way around. And then we're going to do something a little peculiar here. I'm going to use the height property, and I don't use this too often, but it kind of helps with this, and I'm going to set it to 1 EM. Now what this does is it forces the navbar to have a specific height and width. So the height we're setting it at is 1 EM, and the width then becomes 100% by default. Well, this means I don't have to do anything special to clear the navigation afterwards. With that rule, I generally need to apply a clear left to whatever came immediately after the navigation to prevent it from trying to fill the space voided by those left floated lists, which you're going to see here in just a second. So the actual height is arbitrary as long as the height is specified. The list will retain its block level status no matter what the height is. So that's what that 1 EM is. So next we want to style the LIs. Pound navbar space LI. Any LI that's a descendant of the ID navbar. That's in case they put lists on this page somewhere else besides the menu. The first thing we want to do is get rid of the markers. So list style type would be set to none to get rid of those markers. And then we want to float these. This is the float that I was just alluding to with the height in the previous selector. And we're going to float these to the left. After we get that done, we want to do some styling for the anchor tag. Pound navbar space LI space A. Any anchor tag that's a descendant of the LI, that's a descendant of the ID navbar. And what we're going to do here first of all is display block. We've used this before in the books code, and all this is going to do is going to make the block that contains this anchor tag, the entire thing is going to be clickable. instead of just the text itself. So we want that whole box to be clickable. Then we're going to set some padding. Set the padding to 3 pixels top and bottom and 8 pixels right and left. After that, we're going to do a background color. That background color will be hexadecimal 5E, 8C, and E9. We'll change the face color, because that's a darker color, to white, pound FFF. And lastly, we're going to get rid of the underline, which is the text decoration, by setting that to none. So now if we save this and refresh our page, this is what we started with. Now we've got this. Well, the problem here obviously is that all of the submenus are showing also, and forcing this down to multiple lines. We want just the primary list items to show, not everything. So back to our style sheet then, we want to create a new selector that is going to apply to that sub list, the nested lists. And to get to them, we do pound navbar space li space ul. Any ul that is a descendant of an li that's a descendant of the ID navbar. So this would get you to that second level of LIs, and we're simply going to hide them by doing a display none. That will take them out of the entire context. And for the future, we're going to need a background color for it, so we'll go ahead and put it in now. In the future, we're going to need a background color, so we're going to go ahead and put that in now. And that color is going to be hexadecimal pound 69F. Be the same as 6699FF. So now let's take a look to see if we've gotten rid of those. Refresh our page, and indeed we have. We've got our 4 primary list items from the primary unordered list, but notice that none of the submenus display. We have to write the code for that, and we're going to create another selector here that is pound navbar li in the hover state, so li colon hover, and ul. Any ul that's a descendant of a list item that's in the hover state, that's a descendant of the navbar. So now it's specifying it, the li has to be in the hover state. That's quite a bit different from this. So don't confuse these two. The li hover means it has to be in that hover state. And what we're going to do then is display it. And we're going to display it as a block level. So we'll take that UL that's hidden right now, display it as block. We'll also have to position it. So we'll use absolute positioning. Set the margin to 0. Padding to 0. And then while we're here, we also want to set the settings for the LI. So that's pound navbar, LI in the hover state, and any LI that's a descendant of that. So an LI that's a descendant of an LI in the hover state, that's a descendant of the LI, or the navbar. And all we're going to do here is cancel that float. We're going to set the float to none, so that we do not have that float anymore. And then we'll style the anchor tag so it looks halfway decent. That's pound navbar, LI in the hover state, and we're looking for an LI with a descendant of an anchor tag. should have pointed that out before, each list item has an anchor tag inside of it. So we're targeting these anchor tags now. Not the ones that are in the first level, but the ones that are in the second level. And what we're going to do with them is change the background color just so there's some contrast. We'll set that background color to the 69F that we used before. Set the border bottom so we can have something that kind of separates it. This is just going to put a line on the bottom of it. We'll set that to 1 pixel, solid, and white, pound FFF. Then we'll change the color of the font to black, which is pound 000. And then lastly, we need to take care of that anchor tag in the hover state. So pound navbar space LI space LI space A in the hover state. An anchor tag that's in the hover state, that's a descendant of an LI, that is also a descendant of an LI, that's a descendant of the navbar. So this is ensuring that it's only the anchor tags that are 2 levels down. And again, we're just going to change the background color so that they know that that's something that they want to click. We're going to change this to a hexadecimal, and it's going to be 8D B3 FF. So if we save that, refresh our page, voila, we've got drop-down menus. And if you drop down on them, the background changes slightly so that you know what you're hovering over. So that's a vertical drop-down menu, and that's the easiest of the two that we're going to do here, although the other one is much more functional, especially for your homework this week.